Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Love Your Business Mom podcast, where we teach you hard lessons on surviving in business with the warmth and brutal honesty that only a mother can give. I am joined by Tami. She is an incredible, multifaceted creator that I'm so excited to bring to you guys and teach some lessons from. So I want to tell you a little bit about how we met and why you're going to get value from this conversation. How we met's pretty straightforward. One of Tammy's posts came to my LinkedIn feed, and it was about her desk and the journey she's been on to get her desk to operate properly. And that's something I relate to so intensely. I'm always doing something different with my office space. And then I just really fell in love with her branding. She has this beautiful color that's on everything, and her content is just incredible. So all around great human. I think there's a lot we can learn from her. And I would love to know from you, Tami, getting started, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now with your professional and personal life, and then give us the TLDR kind of abbreviated version of how you got there.
So my full name is Tami Oladipo. I am based in Lagos, Nigeria, but calling in from London today. I'm
Ooh.
on a working trip. Very fancy. I work as a content writer at a social media management tech company called Buffer. I write long form blog posts, and our audience is focused on social media. So that was kind of how my journey as a content creator started, specifically on LinkedIn, even though like I do explore other platforms. But yeah, that's why Anna saw my posts. I'm always doing one experiment or the other trying to grow on social media. It's tougher than it looks. So content creators deserve all their flowers. But yeah, that's how we kind of got to today. And then how I got to my job at Buffer is I lost my job in 2020
Mm.
and had to move back in with my parents. That was a whole thing. And I guess I had space to figure out exactly what I wanted to be doing with my career. So that led me to content marketing, and then working at Buffer kind of led me to figuring out that I like LinkedIn. I want to try growing as a content creator on LinkedIn, monetizing and all of that. So I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, that's the Cliff Notes version.
Absolutely. Thank you. So there's lots to dive into. Buffer's amazing. I think what you guys are doing as a team is really awesome. And the way that you all work together comes really clear in the content that you create. You can tell you guys like each other, you're having fun working. And I love to see that because that is not always the case. I would love to know more about, personally, whether it's your transferable skills from last jobs or, personal skills you have in your life, what kind of transferable skills you bring into this new role? Because you mentioned being laying off and getting into kind of a new world. So what skills did you lean on to make that transition?
Yeah. So I already had like lots of experience in marketing, and I think that was the real transferable skill. Other than that, I had to do a lot of learning from the ground up, lots of practicing on my own, learning how to write for blogs, how to optimize posts for like search engines. It was a whole thing. But I was fortunate enough to have people that were very patient, and also fortunate enough to have a brain that kind of picks up things related to writing pretty quickly.
Love that.
So my first remote job was at a content marketing agency called Animals, and that was where I really built up, I would say, like 70% of the skill sets that I have
Okay.
today. Yeah, so without that job, I don't think I would be as good of a writer as I am right now. Buffer has kind of allowed me to expand on my content writing skills with experiments,
Mhm.
research, data analytics, things I didn't think I would ever touch in my career. 5 years in, I'm like turning data reports into articles. So that's I started out with like the base skill of writing, and that has
Mhm.
kind of helped me build up everything that I do today, working at Buffer, freelancing for other companies, writing on LinkedIn, of course. Even video, I think
Yeah.
having a script in front of me helps. So that's like my main transferable skill. It's just like the writing that I used to do as a kid for fun has now become what I do for a living, which is
So tell me
pretty
a little more
great.
about that. Tell me about little Tammy and how you got into writing. That seems
Yeah.
exciting. So how do we get into that?
Yeah. What's funny is I just came from a weekend of being with family here in the
Mm,
UK. I came here to like test the waters, see how I like the
yeah.
country. So far, so good. I think I need to come back during winter though to
Okay.
see just how I like the like real cold. But that's an aside. So I was with family who I kind of grew up with very closely,
Hmm.
aunts and uncles, and everyone was like, your job is so fascinating because it's exactly what, like, if someone hears that I knew you when you were a kid, it's exactly what they would assume that you would end up doing because I was always in a book. I had my nose in a book all the time as a kid. I
Yeah.
wasn't nearly as outgoing, and I wouldn't say I'm outgoing now. I'm still very much an introvert, but like I was very shy, very closed off. The only thing that would bring me out was books. So when we came to visit when I was a kid, they would buy me books. That was like my thing, books and magazines, and like encourage me to write. And it's just the whole thing. Like they call me Professor Tami,
That's
even though
beautiful.
school is not really my thing. But I think like that was like having them as supports, which I'm from Nigeria, and if you know anything about Nigerians, we're very noticeable wherever we go. Kind of loud, kind of like we're expansive. There are many of us, so you find us everywhere. I've run into Nigerians every day. I go out and I hear like my native language while
I
I'm
love
here,
that.
and I'm like, that's yeah, we truly are everywhere. So I'm kind of outside of the box that people place Nigerians in, but I've been fortunate to have a family that's been very encouraging in their own way.
Yeah.
They don't always understand. It takes some explaining, but having that encouragement I think was part of why I ended up at this point and was able to like find a way to make money off my passion that everyone was like, what will she do with this skill of
Right.
everyone assumed I would like get a PhD and become a professor. There's still time for that, you know.
Oh, yeah, we're
But
young.
school's not really my thing though. But yeah, this weekend was just confirmation for a lot of folks that yeah, I found what I'm meant to be doing, which was nice.
I love when somebody's like outcomes align with their purpose and the things that
Yeah.
light them up.
Yeah.
It's so nice to hear people talk about work and be excited. So tell me more about the in between, right? So I understand the
Hmm.
marketing roles and what we're doing now.
Yeah.
I know Professor Tammy from childhood. That's beautiful. Did you explore other careers along the way due to those societal pressures or due to those other factors, or have you always just found a way to
Did
write?
I? So I was the kind of kid that read everything and
Mhm.
not in a good way, in a concerning way. So I would read anything that came across. So there was a point when I was really into science textbooks and I still really like
Mm,
sci-fi today. So everyone thought I would be a scientist because I was really into
right.
like my grandpa had these chemistry textbooks and when he saw that I was always in them when I was at their house. He gave them to me. I'm sure we still have them somewhere at my parents' house. But yeah, there was no in between. Now that I think about it, I kind of hitched my future on my passion for reading, my skill of writing. There wasn't really anything else for me, I don't think. I did pivot to marketing when I figured out that journalists don't make that much money. That
True.
was a whole conversation I had with my dad. He was like, you really want to be a journalist, huh? So he let me go work with a magazine that
Hmm.
a friend of his ran, and quickly realized, like, first day, this is not for me. I can't do this. You have to talk to people. You have to. I was like 14. I was so lost and confused.
Yeah.
But then marketing came up as an option, and I think I've been interning at marketing agencies since I was 14. So like after that
Wow.
first experience, we moved on to other things. Like I said, my family's
Yeah.
always involved. They've been involved since the beginning. I don't think I could do anything without letting them know. Even if I'm supposed to like keep it close to the vest, it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, they've been there every step of the way. So I'm always telling my dad about something, and even though he doesn't fully get everything, especially as things have changed so quickly in the past few years, he's very encouraging. So that has been I've just kind of focused on marketing this whole, like I'm trying to think, and I
No, it's
can't think of
okay.
any point where I tried something different, which is interesting. Guess I got lucky with that it
Would you
worked out.
would you say that I'm wondering if you had an aha moment then, right? Because it's not often that I talk to people who have done one thing. I think it's really cool when someone has. Do you feel like with, the journalism, maybe your aha moment for marketing was like, oh, I need to make money and support myself,
Oh
or I
yeah,
want to be
that
more
was
introverted?
1000% what it was.
Okay.
Apart from being an introvert, I
Yeah.
love having my own money. I love being an adult. Like I don't
Yeah.
miss being a kid. Being able to make money is like my number one perfect event thing in my life. I don't know what I would do with myself if this was taken away from me. Try not to think about it too much. But yeah,
No, it won't
I
be. We're not going to call that it.
yeah.
So, with your family being on this journey with you the whole time, I find personally that I learn a lot of things from my family and the way that they interact with me
Mm-hmm.
throughout my career, but also even in my childhood and, in regular life. So, would you say between like your dad and the other people you've mentioned that somebody has taught you something that directly translates into how you're successful now, either a lesson or just kind of a way of being?
Well, I think it's just growing up in Nigeria, to be honest. It
Yeah,
can be a really difficult existence. There are so many stories that I could use to back that up. But the main one is like my dad, who he did his best, and he worked really hard, ran his own company, was a consultant, did all the things. And
yeah,
still the country's so difficult
mm,
to exist in that the odds are kind of stacked against you. And if you break out of the odds, you're in like a 0.001% group of people. And that was kind of what I watched happen. And
mm,
I think it's just always in the back of your mind, right? You don't
yeah,
want this to repeat itself. Like you want to kind of break the cycle. It's never the driving force. The driving force for me is, do I enjoy what I'm doing? If I don't like what I'm doing, there's nothing to be done. I won't be good at it. I won't be fully present. And I know that about myself. So
yeah,
I guess I've really been fortunate to find really young what I like doing and kind of stick with that throughout my college degree was kind of focused on communication as well. So it's always just been like a recurring theme.
yeah,
But yeah, I think having my parents as well who did their best with the knowledge that they did have
yeah,
was and like didn't push us into any paths that didn't fit with our natural inclination. So my brother is very technical, very maths
hmm,
driven. I was never like that. So
yeah,
even though they were like, you have to pass math to leave high school, like you
yeah,
can't just like not do math. They were encouraging, not in a disparaging way. They really did their best to make sure that we could at least pass the subjects that we weren't that good at and thrive in the things that we like really identified as being strong in. So yeah, I think that's what's that's that's what they give us for sure. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's
yeah, no, it does. I actually think the cool thing was hearing about how you talk about in your culture people being a little particular about work and how people are, but you also talk about your parents and how they're like, no, but like we still
yeah.
want you to do what makes you happy. And so I love hearing that. And I'm curious, do you have like colleagues or other friends who maybe had a different experience and how
Yeah.
yours compares? Um,
Yeah.
is there anyone that stands out to you? That laugh makes me feel like there's a story.
It's most people that start out being directed by their parents. Like, if you don't have a strong will and everyone wants you to do well, they'll kind of just push you into what statistically is more likely to. So there's a running joke that's like, if you're not a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer, you're a disappointment.
Right.
So that's like a running joke among Nigerians. Like, that's changed in recent years. I guess it would be like, if you're not good at like computers, then what are you doing, right? So there are definitely many people who I wish had the chance to explore their passion because
Yeah.
you could tell, especially in college, you could tell that a lot of people were just there because they were following the wave, go to
Yeah.
school and like, but I'm 27 now and I think a lot of people have been able to find some sort of balance between making money, of course,
Yeah.
supporting their families and also pursuing their passions, of course, thanks to the internet, which makes it a little bit easier to try something without having to go all in.
Right.
You see lots of that, but then I do have friends who work in like the big four consulting firms, and I'm like,
Mm,
what are you doing there? And they're like, I just have to make money. How? And they can't really bring their families into what they do because how do you explain that you want to be an artist? Like
right.
a physical drawing, not even like a webtoon artist where there's like anything that there's no clear path to making money is like,
Yeah.
how is this going to work? Mostly because, again, state of the country, do have to support their kids for
Of
much
course.
longer. A lot of parents end up having to support their kids for much longer than is maybe comfortable, ideal. Parents in their 60s with kids in their 20s who are
Yeah.
about to retire and use their savings to send another kid to school. Yeah, there's a lot of nuance to it. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of people who I grew up with who just aren't doing the things that, like looking back, would make the most sense. And then even
Yeah.
just now, the things that they're most talented in aren't the things that kind of immediately bring them income, which is difficult to deal with, I guess. But yeah, that's just the way things are.
Do you feel like you're paving a new path with the way that you're having your experience? Because I feel like
I
everything that
hope
you talk about
so.
with your career, it feels different. I mean, I
Yeah,
feel like maybe you're a pioneer in that and
I hope
showing, hey, here's
so.
another thing you can do.
Yeah. So a lot of people are very creative with seeing. So there's like my career path where, if not for a series of fortunate events, which
Hmm.
kind of seemed unfortunate at the time, but ended up being super fortunate. If not for a series
Yeah.
of fortunate events, I wouldn't be where I am today. I
Right.
was, I'm near, like, my hotel is around where the school I was going to do my master's in 2019
Hmm.
is. So like it's on the same block. And
Okay.
I see the sign every day when I'm like walking somewhere and I'm like, this
Yeah.
could have been my life. I could have been here in 2019 with all
Yeah.
my other friends doing another degree. And my life could have turned out amazing regardless, but it also might not have. And I try not to dwell on like possibilities, of course. Like I don't
Yeah.
like thinking about what ifs, but it's very interesting to think about the fact that I could have lived a completely different life if, to be honest, if the pandemic hadn't happened. I think that was
Yeah.
what it was. I had to defer my admission to the next semester because no one was sure what was going on late
Yeah.
2019, early 2020. And now I won't go back to that school. I have given up that
Wow.
scholarship. It's been 5 years, of course. I've given up the scholarship. I'm never going back there. And that's interesting to think about. I don't really have any regrets, to be honest. But having that experience and then seeing people still take the same path that I was on, that's why I share what I share and try to be as transparent as is comfortable.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes uncomfortable for sure. But that's why I try to be transparent because some people, I just didn't know what else was out there. And I maybe wouldn't have discovered another path if the pandemic hadn't happened. And I wouldn't want it to be a massive global shakeup that
Yeah.
like causes people to rethink their lives. So I try to be as honest as possible with my experiences in the hopes that someone else will identify something, maybe not content. Everyone wants to be a writer. And I'm like, you can't do this job if you really don't like writing. Like, we're
Yeah.
talking 5,000-ish words a week. Can you do that? And most
Mm.
people are like, I wouldn't know where to do 500. So most people won't go into content marketing, but there are so many other paths available. And I just hope that like by sharing my experiences, someone will figure out that, oh, what if I try this and do this? And what if it works out? Even if it doesn't, it's worth a shot, right? But yeah, that's
Absolutely.
hopefully, hopefully I'm helping someone. People have said that I do.
I think you are because I'll be honest, anytime I see your posts, there's always young women saying like, "Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much. This is the best. I didn't know." I posted about you a couple of weeks ago
Yeah.
because I love your brand colors, and there were just so many girls in the comments like, "Oh, she's the best. She's wonderful." And I think you are making an impact. I'm curious, have you ever dabbled in or do you have any future plans to more formally lift people up like in mentorship or anything like that? Have you ever thought about like public speaking, mentorship or any programs like that?
I've tried mentorship, like online
Yeah.
mentorship through like these programs that like let you book 30 minutes with someone and
Hmm.
like have a call and ask them questions. But I don't think that's super suited to my personality. I get super
Fair.
drained with. So there has to be, I keep thinking there has to be a more sustainable way to do this. So I do think about potentially opening up to multiple people. So instead of one-on-one calls, one to many seems to work a bit better for me. The slight anonymity of it, like you can see me, but I can't see you seeing me,
Mm.
sometimes is like better for me. So I have considered maybe just like opening up a LinkedIn Live and allowing people to ask as many questions as they can in like a 45 minutes type spad.
You should
So
definitely do
that
that.
has
People
come
would
up.
love
Yeah,
that.
that has come up. I've never tried LinkedIn Live, so I keep thinking because I can be oddly a perfectionist, even though I'm not a perfectionist. I keep thinking if I do this, then I want to have like nice branding. Like I love the way yours is set up, and I was
Thank
like,
you.
wow, I would want to do something like that. And it takes time to build these things, of course. So maybe I
Yeah.
should just do one someday. But yeah, it's definitely been on my mind. Also, maybe just having like a course even though I'm not much of a teacher, to be honest. I
You're
don't
not
think
Professor Tammy?
I am not Professor Tab. I don't know why that nickname. It's just because I used to read all the time as a kid and everyone assumed wrongly
Right.
where I would end up. I'm the most unserious person on the planet. Definitely not professor material. But yeah, courses have come up for me and the LinkedIn Live thing. But yeah, one to one, I tried it. It wasn't for me. But
You said you're
hopefully
an introvert, so that makes
very
sense.
soon, yeah. Hopefully very soon I can do something. I hope.
I love that. Well, you also talked about, you know, being from Nigeria and the discrepancies you see and, the different experiences that people have. So I'm curious too, like, I've always thought about when I actually like get up and I'm, not worried about feeding these kids, right? I've always said like I want to go back to my high school and start a scholarship because, the experiences
Mm.
I had there were so good for me and I know so many brilliant kids there that could benefit from that. So have you ever thought about like if you had all the money in the world, like what you would do to kind of like make things
Mm.
better at your home?
Well, I definitely do want someone to tell these kids that, like, someone needs to let them know what the real world is like,
Mm-mm.
or maybe someone that they will listen to. I don't know if I'm that person.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely agree that there's a lot that could be done. I haven't thought too deeply again because doing things in person, like I would want to be anonymous or something
Yeah.
like that because it's too
If you
much.
could donate and somebody else could do the program, what would you think they could do to make things better?
Definitely like just I think updating the so again, state of the country. A lot of
Yeah.
things that I do come back to how I grew up and where
Right.
I grew up and like where I live now. It's the education system is not keeping up with the
Mm.
rates at which things are changing. I think that's the main thing for me. University curriculums are not up to date with like they're so focused on things that I'm like I don't use this. I didn't use this back in 2015 when we had these classes. I'm
Yeah.
definitely like not alone in that. These kids are even farther behind because no one is paying attention
Mm.
because kids are never the priority for most societies. I don't know. Like people really, I
Yeah.
always say it that like people really don't like kids these days, and I don't know what's going on. But I think that would be something that I would definitely put like my money where my mouth is. Education outside of the school system, probably.
Yeah.
But like education of some sort that kind of brings updates their curriculum for the modern world. Or maybe I will eventually go into politics and just take over the education department because no one is paying attention to that. It's like kids are graduating with
Yeah.
not useless, but like definitely not super relevant anymore skills. Yeah.
I
So
support it.
I
I
think
think go where you're
that's yeah.
called. It could be public office, it could be donating, it could be a
Yeah.
little private program. I think you'll figure it out, but it's beautiful that you have those intentions. Well, I will say, you mentioned the education system not keeping up, right? One thing that makes me wonder, because you've had a pretty clear path most of your life, what are the more creative ways that you got experience in education? And you've already talked a little bit about internships. You could dig more into that, but what are the ways that you learned those real skills that helped you be successful the way that you are now?
Well, it was the internships.
Okay.
Being allowed into spaces where I could, as a child, see
Hmm.
there was like there was always a protective barrier of some sort, whether that was like someone at the office who was tasked with having me underhand all day, which must
Yeah.
have been really annoying looking back. I'm grateful for all those people who
Yeah.
kind of let me experience their day to day. There was one agency that I interned at, and what they did was every week I would switch around different departments, sit in on
Mm.
meetings, contribute to conversations. I was 15. I had no idea what I was talking about. Like realistically looking back, I probably had no clue what was what was really going on.
Yeah.
But having those experiences allowed me to understand what it was, especially that I didn't want to do. And I think a lot of kids never get the chance to say, I'm not interested in this and I want to switch. And
Right.
2 months in like a particular environment will tell you all you need to know. 2 months, 2 days in a particular
Okay.
environment will tell you everything you need to know about whether it's for you or not. I tried experiential marketing where like you go out and do events. That was the
Yeah.
worst internship I've ever had to do. But at least I knew that if someone ever came up to me offering that sort of job, I had figured out
Yeah.
at 17 that I'm never going to be pulled into events of any sort. Miss me with all of that, 1000%. Figuring that out pretty young helped me to kind of cut out, like, as I was entering my content marketing journey, I already kind
Yeah.
of knew what I didn't want to do. So whenever I would
Right.
see a role, I would be able to read and say, yeah, I'm not even going to bother applying for this because, like, a lot of people don't have that chance to figure
Yeah.
out what they don't want to do. Like, you'll say you want to be a pilot, and then you'll realize when you're sitting in the test chair that, oh, this is terrifying. I don't like and you have to deal with that because you've paid for the school and
Right.
done all the things, and no one ever thought to say, are you sure this is exactly like you don't like heights? So maybe
Yeah.
you should try something else. Maybe be an engineer or whatever. But yeah, being able to say, oh yeah, I don't like doing that was probably the most valuable experience for me as a kid.
Yeah.
Also helped me grow up pretty quickly. Being around adults just helps you do that. I was fortunate that no one ever tried to take advantage of me. And I know
Yeah.
that that will be the case for a lot of, so there's probably a bit more structure that could be built around internship programs in general with check-ins and stuff. But that was the most, and that's the thing that I would say, like, as much as possible, let kids be integrated into things that seem like they would be too adult for that. Let them just, even if it's make believe, just
Yeah.
make up scenarios and let them be involved and like think through these things before they have to like be in that reality. That will save so many people so much heartache.
I think I think that's such a great point because there's two things you just mentioned, right? You talked about kind of their experience versus what they actually get into when they're real adults. And you also talked about not knowing that you don't want to do something until it's too late. And I feel like those are really just a case of
Yeah.
expectations not matching reality. So would you say
Yeah.
that when you're in those situations, like can you tell what's not matching up? Is it a gut feeling? Do you notice certain things? How would you, if you were asking, the listeners were like, hey, Tammy, how do I know something's not for me?
Hmm.
What advice would you give on that topic?
I think see how things match who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So I know who I am as a person doesn't do well in large groups of
Mm,
people and having to be the center of attention, for example. That's something that
okay.
I've known for I feel like that's something that people figure out pretty quickly, whether they like being on stage, whether they maybe don't like being on stage, but like they could get used to being on stage. If they like mass, that's already a major thing that you figured out. I can't do this every day versus, okay, I could see myself maybe doing this every other day. If they love to spend time reading a lot, they might like writing a lot. So it's just looking inward a bit more. A lot of people are very internal, and I don't know what to blame that on. Like a lot of people don't think about like who they are, what they like, what they want out of life very often.
Right.
I definitely encourage people to think about that a bit more. You'd be surprised at what's out there. There are all sorts of things that people do to make money they sound ridiculous, but like there's a reason they're being paid to do those things. And what if that's the thing that works out for you? If you like my sister, she loves talking. She
Yeah.
loves to yap. And I've always said that the second I can figure out like how to get her some time, podcast is definitely what I'll just put her in front of a microphone and let's see what happens
Love
because she
it.
loves to talk. She will talk for days if you let her. And she loves to be around people and she loves to have
Yeah.
conversation. That sounds like the perfect news
Yeah.
journalist person or podcaster to me. It may not be in the future. Thinking about yourself or maybe someone else around you, your kids or family members who you've seen like, oh, they're really good at this one thing. Just thinking about that a bit more deeply is so important. I wouldn't be where I am today if everyone wasn't always thinking about Tamilora's future career as
Yeah,
a professor, lawyer, writer, anything that involved writing.
I love that.
Yeah, so definitely think a bit more deeply about who you are as a person before you need to dive into any experiences in the future. Some people don't have the luxury of time, but
Right.
that would definitely be it. If you could start today, definitely that.
It sounds like once you find that thing that clicks, just run in that direction
Yeah,
until
of
something
course.
does it.
Yeah, that
And
was what I
so,
did and it worked for me.
yeah. Well, and you're doing really well. I wanted to get more into the things that do work for you. You talk a lot on LinkedIn and I'm sure other spaces as
Mm-hmm.
well. You're a content marketer, you talk about monetization, personal branding, all these things. So what have you been leaning into lately that has like your most interest or that you're enjoying working on the most?
Brand partnerships.
Love it.
Yeah, of course, because that involves making money, my favorite activity. So, LinkedIn brand partnerships have recently come up as a stream of income and just an area of interest outside of
Hmm.
like me personally doing them, how other people are doing them, the
Yeah.
advice that experts who it's kind of new, right? If I'm not mistaken, it's not like it's been
It as a
super
field, yeah.
popular, yeah, until very recently. So the people in that space, just thinking about the platform as a whole, hopefully LinkedIn will make some updates to their general interface and user
Yes,
experience. But for
desperately
now,
needed.
yeah, but for now, the way brands are thinking about LinkedIn and the
Yeah.
opportunities that are out there are very interesting to me. Um, also just very exciting to no, I'm not new. I'm not like
Yeah.
early. I don't think I'm super early. But like a lot of people have no idea what I'm talking about when I say people pay people, including me, to post about their products on LinkedIn. And yeah, it's wild to a lot of people who are only familiar with maybe Instagram or TikTok. So that's an area of interest for me for sure.
I think of you as one of the leaders in that. I don't know if I'm reaching, but for me personally, I've gotten into that as well. I came into this world by Jay Powell's content. She's
Uh,
kind of the queen of brand
yeah,
partnerships in
yeah,
all aspects,
of
right?
course.
And very quickly after getting into that, your content started coming onto my feed. So I think you might be more of a leader than you think in that space. But I would have loved to know, like, if you could shoot your shot and like reuse this clip 1,000 times, what's your dream collab that you want to make happen?
Well, one of my dream collabs is in my inbox right now, so
Ooh,
fingers crossed.
okay, we won't
But
jinx that
like
one.
major dream collab is Notion because I use
Nice.
Notion for I'm in Notion all the time doing all things in Notion, both for work and for personal use. So it's the most natural fit for me. I guess LinkedIn would make the most sense as well, just as someone who's always writing about the platform, who is a LinkedIn creator, who works with
Yeah.
a company that has like LinkedIn as a major partner. So Notion and LinkedIn, which is kind of boring now that I say it out loud.
I
I
don't think
maybe
it's
need to
boring.
do
I
some
love it.
research. I think I need to do some research and like update my list of brands. But
Okay.
those two for sure. Yeah.
Well, the next time we chat like this, you'll have to think about like a really fun, random, interesting one. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I want this skincare. Oh, it's because I like cooking. I want this cast iron fan. I
Yes.
can't wait to
Okay,
hear what you
so
come up with.
LinkedIn lifestyle branding is mind melting to me because I can whenever someone does it, I can see the connection with their content, with the brand.
Hmm.
I'm like a DTC brand going to a LinkedIn influencer and having them post on LinkedIn is
Yeah.
wild if you really, really think about it. Anyway, yeah,
I think it's wild, but I think it's kind of cool because like
it is very cool.
I don't know if I'm the only one who does this, but I feel like a lot of times the connections that I interact with more on LinkedIn, they're like my fake colleagues, right? It's like we don't work in the same company, but like we low key work together.
Yeah.
And I feel like if like one of my colleagues, came on there, like if, Lloyd, the brand influencer, was like, hey, when I'm trying to have a quick lunch because I'm so busy making all these brand deals, I'd probably be like, I might actually buy that because
Might
like if
try
he
that.
uses it,
There
right,
is
more than like
something
some
to
girl on
that.
Instagram,
Yeah.
you know?
There is something like to people, there's something about the professional connection that
Hmm.
just creates more trust. I've noticed for me, whenever Jade recommends something, I'm always like,
No,
I will
seriously.
try this. I will 1000%. Like, I'm not even thinking twice about clicking on the link, which
Yeah.
is so interesting for the marketing side of things. Like, the B SaaS companies have finally maybe landed on something that works better than having a sales team reach out to you 1 million times, which is so frustrating.
Hmm.
But this is so much better. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
No, I love
going
that.
into the weeds, but yeah.
The weeds are good though. This is your world. This is what you do. So I'm okay with it. What's another thing? So you talked about D2C, right? Being interesting on LinkedIn. What's another interesting like marketing trend or content, trend that you've noticed that you don't know where it came from or you have interesting thoughts on it?
Well, I don't know if it's a trend
Hmm.
necessarily, but I've been really into meme pages, but like not memes in the subversive internet meme way.
Yeah.
This creator, Edmund Lau, did this. He broke down the dark mode, light mode shifts. He had this like really popular post go off. And after I followed him, I started getting recommended other similar pages with like similar vibes
Hmm.
and noticing how they partner with how they monetize their content. So it's not always through brand partnerships, but
Yeah.
they'll have like the meme on as the post, and then you'll check the caption and it's a brand partnership, or it will be
Okay.
a collab post on Instagram. And I was just like, this is so interesting because you don't have to be present. It's like and there's that thing with generational memes where you just
Hmm.
know what they're talking about, even if you
Yeah.
have no clue what was going on before you got here. Well, like once you
Yeah.
see the thing, you can kind of pick out the different pieces and say, oh, okay, yeah, I think I kind of get what's going on here. And they're
Yeah.
funny too. So I'm just like, I'm fascinated by them because it's such an interesting way to do content. There's one that when I came, the ads in the UK, by the way, have been ridiculous, but like it was recommended to me on Instagram when
Okay.
I like my first day here. The
Hmm.
account and it's like Socks House Meeting or something. Ridiculous username.
Hmm.
But it's so funny and all UK based. And having spent time here, I'm starting to
Yeah.
see what they mean
Yeah.
by and I'm just like, this is so interesting. The internet is such an interesting place. Yeah, it's hard to explain. I'm probably very ridiculous if like someone else who has no clue what I'm talking about goes to hunt down some of these pages, but I find it fascinating. So
It's kind of like the faceless YouTube channels. That's what it
the
makes me think
faceless
of,
YouTube
where
channels
it's
are
just
just
like,
ridiculous.
but you'll like have this attachment to this like faceless YouTube channel, and you know the
Yeah.
voice and you know the art style, and you're like, who the heck is
Who
making
is
this?
this
But they have
person?
brand partnership, right? But you're like, she said that I should try this thing, so like maybe I will. But it's like I don't know
Yeah.
who this person is.
And I trust
That's
them
incredible.
implicitly
Yeah,
too.
because their vibes are
Just,
right. They have
yeah,
good opinions, and you're just like, sure,
yeah, sure.
absolutely, SpongeBob, whatever, right? Like, I'll go buy this thing. I didn't realize there were so many. I've only encountered one, I think, of those on LinkedIn, so I didn't realize they were popping up as
They
much
are
as
on
you're saying.
Instagram. They
Okay. So, with everything that you do, right? There's a lot of tools you use. You briefly mentioned, Notion. You talked about how you work at Buffer. If you had to put together like a starter pack, people love a starter pack for a new content marketer or a new person working in social media, what would be your like starter pack? Just use these tools and, go from there.
starter pack for a new content marketer. I feel like I'm just repeating myself, but definitely Notion.
That's okay.
Um, find the newsletters for your niche.
Mm,
Subscribe to all of them. Just like mass subscribe to a bunch of newsletters.
love
I
that.
always tell people immerse yourself in the world of whatever it is that you're trying to do. If it works for people in other industries, artists surround themselves with art, writers read
Hmm.
books, newspaper people are always waiting for a scoop. The same should definitely apply to marketers. So follow all the people on LinkedIn, follow all the companies, read all the newsletters, and slowly but surely you'll start to notice that your world becomes, or like your algorithms become kind of hyper focused. That's great for people who are starting out. It can get frustrating after you've built up the skill, but like if you're as a starter pack situation, definitely immerse yourself as deeply as possible in the world of whatever it is that you're doing. For content marketers, it's not other content marketers, they will have good advice, but it's other things that are kind of competing for the attention in your niche. So like whatever
Mm,
is popping up whenever you search the keywords of your clients on Google. That's your
Yeah.
competition. Other attention grabbers are also competition, things that will kind of take. So, however, you can insert yourself into, to use a very marketing word, the narrative of your audience's
Yeah.
algorithm. So that could be through YouTube videos or social media. Sometimes it's just through writing. So definitely be in the spaces where they also are. If that's threads, then be on threads. Be on threads
Hmm.
hard. If that's LinkedIn, of course, be on LinkedIn. Just apply the same logic to any space or any niche that you want to work in or work with. Yeah.
I like that.
That's like,
So that's the starter pack. But we talked about, you even made a side comment like, okay, but if you're like further along, it might get annoying. So I'm noticing this theme of like do things that feel good, and then when they stop working, keep pivoting, right? So
hmm
if you were okay, I'm at this point, the newsletters are getting redundant. I feel like I've got my footing. I'm a part of the narrative now, even
yeah,
if it's a small part. What would you now say is kind of like the version 2.0? What's like the platinum pack that
the
you would have for more
upgrade.
of an experienced person? Yeah, the upgrade.
Well, for a content marketer, I think it's figuring out ways to stand out among the flood,
Mm,
the like large group of, it's a small industry, but like there are enough of us, I think, at this point. It can kind of feel crowded. So how can you stand out? Some people choose to stand out by building a personal brand.
mhm.
Some people choose to stand out by like focusing on other people, uplifting other people. So that's,
Yeah.
they start their own thing, and maybe that's an agency or a company. You notice that, I think I've noticed that a lot with content marketers. That's kind of the default approach. Things are definitely
Yeah.
changing with AI, but yeah,
Yeah, they are.
things are changing a bit with AI, but I think this is how we think about content at Buffer. Content has to have a strong identity. So a
Mhm.
strong personal identity, even when like someone should be able to say, oh, clearly this person did this thing. So
Yeah.
figuring out what that will be. I know that when I was much more junior, I had no personality in my writing because I was
Mm,
focused on delivering optimal results for the clients and also learning as much as possible. Now
yeah.
that it's become kind of second nature, I'm in a spot where I feel like I can be a bit more loosey goosey, for lack of a more technical term, with how
Yeah.
I phrase things and like my preferred repeated words, how I introduce articles, how I will
Yeah.
like add a little interjection. And fortunately, I'm at a company that encourages this. My manager is always like, "Oh yeah, that's definitely very Tammy," and
I love that.
that's where I am. I think I'm at the 2.0. So like if you're beyond this and you have like other advice, other opinions, then please remember I'm 5 years into my career. So this is like me at that 2.0 point. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. And it's been working for me, for us at Buffer. So definitely find a way to bring your personality into everything that you're doing, your personal brand, like the content that you create for other people. It should feel like
Yeah.
you, even if it's a script from like direction from someone else. There should be like a touch of you in there somehow.
I love that. So I feel like whether it's your journey or how you look at content now or your thoughts on the industry, it feels like there's a few themes that I want the listeners to take away for sure. And you definitely correct me if I'm misinterpreting them. But I feel like the biggest thing is be really in touch with yourself and then find things in the world that resonate with that. Go really hard on those things. And if stuff stops to click, kind of pivot. And so, if I had to sum this up, I love calling things a lesson. In my newsletter, that's what I do as well. Lesson, whatever, here's your title for the day. I almost would call it is like, it's nothing that you're looking for. It's you, right? Like you're not looking for something. It's you because I feel like you are the one who likes to write and that's what you're
Yeah.
doing now. Your voice is what's coming out in your writing and that's what's performing now. Do you agree that's a good lesson
Oh yeah.
coming from today?
That's a much more succinct way to put it
We got to give them a
that
bite
I've
so they
been
come listen
doing.
to the whole conversation.
But I definitely agree. You are the most, well, in one more like shortening, just be a bit more
Yeah,
selfish
love that. Be more
or
selfish.
self-concerned. Yeah.
Self-concerned. Okay. I feel like there's so many we can say self. We don't want to say self-centered because that's connotations, but
Yeah.
I like more be more concerned with yourself. Be more self-concerned. That's beautiful. And what would be like your top action item? So like it's cool to say be self-concerned, right? But how do we
Mhm.
do it? It can be one thing, it can be five things, but what would be kind of the action item that you would say if you want to be more self-concerned, do this today to start?
Mm. Well, sit with your thoughts a bit, like for 5 minutes.
Hmm.
and just ask yourself questions. Treat it like a conversation. Use AI if you have to, like do the back and forth thing,
Yeah.
but definitely spend time thinking, am I doing what I want to be doing? Or is this the best way I could be doing what I'm doing at the moment? Just
Yeah.
asking yourself a bit more. No matter where you are, I think that's an important conversation to have with yourself at some points, any points. So that's definitely one thing that I would say that people should try. But also, like, have some fun with life, with work.
Yeah.
Read more. That sounds very like me to say.
That's
But
okay
read
though.
more. Read something today. Subscribe to
Okay.
Substack or create a Substack account and scroll through and find things to read. Like engage with
Yeah.
media. Always helps me. Or visit a museum. Sit with your thoughts. Things to just help you quiet down a bit. Think about yourself some more.
I
Yeah.
love that. And so to end every episode, the season one theme is family values and how those translate into work. So, for example, in my family, one thing we really value, myself, my husband, and our kids is honesty. So, for example, if you do something wrong, but you tell me, you're in a lot less trouble than if you don't, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And in my work, that's a really crucial thing. I'm dealing with people's data, I'm dealing with people's, business systems. And so I have
Mm-hmm.
to be a very honest person and expect others to do the same. And
Yeah.
so, what would you say is one of your family values that you bring into your career and that you plan to keep, no matter what you do and how your world of work changes?
Well, I guess it would be the thing that my parents always tell us every time they speak to us, which is like it boils down to take responsibility for yourself, for your life. So even if something didn't work out the way you wanted it to, even if it seems like the whole world is against you, don't let like external factors be how you react to new situations that you face, good or bad. Let it all come from within. Not to self-blame, but
Yeah.
to kind of acknowledge your responsibility in sometimes that's just I exist and that's why certain things will happen. Like I exist in a certain way, that's why certain things will happen the way they
Yeah.
do. But I can't blame the world for things that go wrong in my life. And I also can't treat life as this like thing that's just loose in the wind because things are going so fantastic. So taking responsibility for yourself, for your life is definitely like that's what it boils down to. That's not the conversation
I
that's
love
happening.
that.
But like I think that's the ultimate lesson that they're
Yeah.
always having us take away from the conversations. It's been recurring since I was a child, so it definitely feels like a value that we hold as a family.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And your parents sound awesome. I'm sure you have a really cool
Well,
time when
they
you
have
get
their
together with your
moments.
family. But we all do. We all do. But no, I think that's beautiful. I encourage everyone who's gotten this far, especially to follow Tami on LinkedIn. If you're not already, she's awesome. You know where to find her. But any parting words for the listeners?
No parting words. I think I've said a lot already.
Yeah,
Yeah. I will leave you here for today. I hope
I
this
think
was helpful to someone.
that's beautiful. Those are great parting words.